Crusaders. This is a new game published by TMG. It is a game, well, about the Crusades, maybe not so much. It's really not about the theme. It is a Euro game, a medium weight, light to medium weight Euro game that you will not play if you want to learn about the Crusades, but if you want to enjoy Euro gamey type of mechanics. It is a game that incorporates a rondel in a Mancala mechanism with a board. That is, you will have your own rondel, you will move tokens on it the way you would do in Mancala, and then you will activate different actions that then you resolve on the board. We have seen this before, for example, most notably in Trajan, came out a couple of years ago, and also has that idea. But Trajan is definitely more involved. There is a lot more to chew and to digest. Crusaders is definitely more streamlined and more accessible. But without further ado, why don't I show you how the game works? Let's start by having a look at the player's board. Each player has one, such as this one. Here you have a slot where you place the token representing your clan. There is a large stack of these and they all do slightly different things, so hooray, replay value. Here you have the heart of the game, which is the rondel. It is made of 6 wedges, as you see here. They are separate pieces and they're also double-sided. They have one action on one side and you start with that side up, and then there is an upgraded side that represents 2 actions. At the beginning of the game, a player will shuffle their pieces randomly and so place them in a configuration such as this one, but the exact order will be random, and then the other players will reproduce that configuration so that it's random for the game, but everybody has the same one. The basic idea is that when it is your turn, you will choose to either activate a wedge for its action or actions, and the value of the action or actions will be that of the tokens that are there. Or instead of doing that, you remove the tokens temporarily. You will upgrade that. You will then put the tokens back, and then you can redistribute the tokens that are on another wedge. And it doesn't have to be the wedge that you upgraded. If you decide to activate a wedge for its action instead, simply you will resolve the action. The value of the action is the number of tokens on it, and then you will take all the tokens on that wedge and you will distribute them clockwise, 1 per space, Mancala style. If next turn I want to use this action here, then after I resolve the travel action, I move these guys that way. Again, the number of tokens indicates the value of the action. Usually the higher the value, the better the action. Here on this other side of the player's board, you organize the buildings that you will be building during the game. You have banks, you have farms, churches, and castles. During the game you will have a knight. You start with a knight on the board representing your position, and don't worry, we'll have a look at the board soon. There are also other knights that you unlock and you get to place on the board when you build your first and your third castle. Also, when you build things, you reveal symbols that will act as discounts. For example, if I want to perform the build action, well, my value will be indicated by what I have on the build thing. But then, for example, if I activate that space for build, and I have that one, then actually right now my build value is 4. And after I do that, I do that. So that's pretty important. So these are discounts for the master action, this is for the build action. When I activate the influence action, I simply gain influence points, again equal to the number of action tokens on that wedge. That'll be 1 plus what I have, from this part of the board that is actually showing. Speaking of influence, you have a fixed number of influence tokens that are in play depending on the number of players. It's a fixed number because when they're gone, they're gone. In fact, when the number of tokens indicated for that game is over, you make sure that everybody had the same number of turns, and then the game is over. You add some final scoring that may give people more influence points, but ultimately the player with the most influence points is the winner of the game. So, discounts, extra influence points, extra travel that you do with the travel action. This area here is used for muster. When you perform the muster action, you will flip the leftmost token, and now you have a symbol that is visible, and that also is used as a discount when you're fighting. When you're crusading, when you're attacking people using the crusade action, then I guess you guessed it, the value is that of tokens indicated there plus what you have there. Couple of other rules. So when you muster or when you build, you have to do it from left to right using the leftmost available token or building. And when you have a wedge with multiple actions on the rondel, you can use the wedge for only one action or only the other, or any combination of the two. Here I have build and crusade on this upgraded wedge. I can choose if I activate that wedge to build for 4 or crusade for 4, or build and crusade for 2 each, plus again bonuses and discounts, or say 3 and 1 or 3 and 1. So I can distribute them any way I want, and that's pretty neat, and that's pretty cool. Also, if you build all of the buildings of one type, you reveal the last space on a building's track. That will unlock extra way of scoring points. For example, here you score for each enemy set. We'll look at the enemy soon. Here just 6 points. Here you get a victory point for each knight and troop that you have, and so on and so forth. Now, as for the map, here's the map, large, mounted, double-sided. This is the side with 2 players, the other side is for 3 or 4 players. You have your starting knight that indicates where you are. During the game, you will move on the board and do different things. For example, you will attack enemies. These tokens here that you see represent enemies. These are the Prussians, these are the Slavs, and these ones here are the Saracens. They're identified as such by the back, which is always the same, but then they have different symbols on the front because they give you different types of advantages, as opposed to the Prussians and the Slavs. When you defeat them, they always give you the same advantage, which is glory points, influence points, which is victory points. You see also these other tokens here. They represent different types of advantages that you will receive if you build a building in that area. To be able to build a building in an area, it needs to be empty of enemies. And then there are advantages such as if I build a bank there, I'm gonna score extra influence points. And the same if I build those buildings there. Other tokens may give me discounts. So say to build a church in the area that has that token will cost me 2 fewer building points than usually. Speaking of that, I don't know that I pointed that out, but back quickly to the player's board. The numbers that you see here is the cost that you had to pay, remember, with your action tokens and or discounts, and these little numbers here are also the costs that you have to pay to build the building that is sitting there at the beginning of the game. Back to the main action, back to the board. Where were we? Well, we're on the board. So actions that you can take. You can take the travel action, and it will cost 1 action point to leave a space that is empty of enemies, like so. Or it will take 2 points to move out of an area that has enemies in it. If an area is empty, you can build in it, in which case you simply pay the cost, select the leftmost available building of that kind, and then you simply place the corresponding token there. If you want to fight against an enemy, now there are 2 tracks here on the side of the board that represent the strength of the Prussians and the Slavs, respectively. And they start at 3. In order to defeat an enemy, you need to match their strength. So, for example, to defeat the Slavs at the beginning of the game, I need 3 Crusade points, which will be any combination of the action tokens I have on the Crusade Wedge when I activate it, and these are the points coming, if you remember, from the Master action. If I defeat them, I take the token, I score a number of influence points equal to their current strength, and then they get wiser and mad after they've been defeated. They become stronger to defeat. So as the game goes by and more of a kind are defeated, the stronger they become. If I defeat a Saracen, then I will simply, as a reward, gain the possibility, the option of building whatever it is that they represented on that icon. Otherwise, I can just choose to get 3 influence points. And you also score influence points by doing other things, such as by building stuff, by mastering things. Also, again, influence points. There is a wedge for that. It's a pretty cool and simple action. Sometimes after you move your action tokens around, they start cluttering this wedge here. When you take that action, simply the number of action points is the number of influence points that you collect, plus influence symbols that may be showing on your player's board after you remove some of the buildings, especially churches will give you a lot of those symbols. Build, travel, muster, collect influence, travel more. This is pretty much the idea, because this is, in fact, the flow of the game. You move around and you clean up areas, defeating enemies that will become stronger. You build buildings that will give you various types of advantages. You muster so that you can defeat enemies that become increasingly stronger. Continue like this until all influence points have been assigned. Make sure everybody had the same number of turns. Count victory points after some final scoring, and at the point, the player with the most victory points, that is, with the most influence points, is the winner of the game. I like Crusaders a lot. I don't know that he sent Trajan to retirement. I think there's still a time and place to play that one, but I think this one will get played more often because it is so much more accessible. Yes, with all these components, it may look a little threatening to casual players, but in truth the mechanics are so simple. Mancala, everybody knows how it works, and everything else is pretty much make sure your action tokens are enough to pay for the action you want to perform, to build a building at the level you want to build it, to master at the level you want to master, and do that. And as for the rest, how you chain things, well, if you want to attack those people, you need to master before. Maybe before you master, you need to build a farm, and to build a farm, So it feels pretty logical, pretty intuitive. In that sense, the theme works. If I build a farm, it's easier to master. If I build a bank, it is easier to build more buildings because I guess I have more money. In that sense, the theme works. But then if you connect it with the larger theme of the Crusades, I don't see the Crusades at all. If nothing else, to me, Crusaders without the Holy Land is just not the same. The southernmost that they go is southern Italy. And banks in the Middle Ages, I don't think that those really were a thing. To me, that's not a problem. Some people may be more thematically committed, but this is a Euro game. It's a game of this kind. When I see it has an action rondel, I want the gameplay to be smooth and captivating, and it doesn't matter to me if I'm not learning much about the Crusaders. And gameplay really is so smooth and it flows so well. First I was saying the game that can be played by beginners. I played it with my 6-year-old daughter. Of course she struggled to see the little strategy, but gameplay she could play it. And I know that I trained my kids in playing games more than most parents would do, so maybe for a kid that is not that trained, maybe 8, 9-year-old, but definitely this is a game that young players can play. It is that simple. And as I was saying about how smooth it goes, because your turn is going to be so fast. And you can plan during other players' turns. Because of this, Yes, there will be some quote-unquote dead turns in which I'm taking an action which maybe is not all that exciting. I'm moving, I'm traveling, or I'm even collecting just influence. And I'm doing it mainly because I'm distributing my tokens in a way that will set me up for a better action. If I had downtime between the last interesting turn, the turn or two that I used to set up, and then the turn where I do something good, well, that would be a deal breaker. But it is not the case, because you can plan doing other players' turns, and so can the other players. So it just moves around so fast that I really don't mind. Now I call it influence. Oh, okay, it's my turn again. Now it is other thing. And now I finally get to do the thing that I really wanted to do, to build that big castle, or to defeat those powerful enemies, and so on and so forth. It is also a game that has a lot of indirect interaction. You don't get to attack each other, and for some players that is really a big positive. My wife, for example, does not enjoy games where you can attack each other directly. She likes games in which you can mess up other people's plans a little bit, and this works because, again, you don't get to attack each other, but the board is not that big. And if I go and I attack an area and I eliminate an enemy, making it stronger for everybody else later, and I build a castle there, well, that is taking away resources and changing the game state for everybody else. It is about limited resources. You don't get to attack each other, but if I go and grab the thing that you wanted, if I build all around you, now you have to spend time to travel somewhere else, and maybe where you go is where you do not have such good things that are good for you. That definitely will mess your plans up. So I like that. I like the fact that it does not feel like a multiplayer solo, though I guess for some players it may look that way, but really finding, I really wanted that thing, why did you do it? Well, of course you did, because it was good for you. And maybe you had the added bonus of annoying the heck out of me, but in a good way, like we do when we're playing games. The components look very great, really, really good. Setup is a little bit of a chore, but then you have a game that really plays well. Frankly, I don't know that it will be a gateway game, if nothing else, because of the weight, because of how, again, almost threatening the mass of components looks, but it's really not much more complex than, say, Catan. And it is 1,000 times better because it has no luck factor whatsoever. There is random setup, but after that it is really you playing well, because everything that happens in the game then is deterministic, is determined by the actions the players take, and to me that is great. It is fun to have games that don't have a random factor, but that don't feel scripted, don't feel like algorithmic, don't feel like it's a puzzle that you can always solve the same way. With different setup, different rondels, and different things that the players will do, grabbing things before you do, well, I think that the puzzle is going to change enough from time to time to keep the game fresh. In general, I had a blast playing Crusaders. It has to be one of the best Euro games that I played in a long time. It's just really, really good. It is everything I want from a Euro game. It has strategy, it has good components, it has a smooth and streamlined gameplay, and it's just, well, it's just a ton of fun to play. Highly recommended.